everybody! Today we're going to be talking about a bloodline called Angellis Ater. It's a very uncommon bloodline to find in the wild with a good reason, which is that it is very not elaborated upon by the studio that made it. So, like, White Wolf, fix your shit, I would say, if they had any intention of putting Bali back into the games, but at the moment they don't, so likely they never will. There is very little information about them, and that makes them extremely not playable and even not usable as like a bad guy inside your stories. Also, apologies for like if this ends up being kind of bad video quality. I'm currently transitioning in between builds of computers, so recording ends up being a bit weird, and sorry about having no makeup, but I am currently melting. It is a heat wave. I do not like those. So, first of all, we have a meme here. There is a reason why we have this meme, and it feels pretty accurate, and you'll understand it better when I explain what Angellis Ater are. If you don't know what is a meme, hi vampire, because wow, you must be old. Meme is a funny picture on the internet. Okay? Okay, so I'm gonna just like read everything that there is on Angellis Ater on Wikipedia for you, because we have like 5 paragraphs worth. Like, that is all. The Angellis Ater are an odd La Sombra bloodline that crosses boundaries between Bali and La Sombra. They have the same weakness as other La Sombra. They do not cast reflections. The bloodline has been around since at least Middle Ages. Descended in part from a powerful Bali called Azanil. This monstrous vampire acted as a leader within the Bali line for a time and twisted the orthodoxy of some kindred enough to create a kind of heresy, one that was too attractive to the La Sombra. Put in a question mark. I would love for you to elaborate on that, but we don't have that lore, so what's attractive to the La Sombra? Why is it attractive to the La Sombra? Please elaborate. Nobody will ever elaborate, so let's just move on. The Clan of Shadow's power base traditionally included the Catholic Church, and over time the Angellis Ater made at least some inroad with these pious La Sombra. How much influence in the church they were able to wield is not known, but they did survive the Inquisition. Angellis Ater are rare in modern nights, but they do exist. The so-called Black Angels believe that vampires are the instrument of Satan, and they worship sin and darkness of the soul. Their La Sombra blood lets them reach into the blackness, pull it forth and manipulate it, and the Black Angels become dependent upon and addicted to the use of obtenebration discipline over time. The Angellis Ater have lacked organization since the fall during the Dark Ages. After Namtara's tomb rampage, when Azanil almost killed all of them, they started to slowly decrease in number until around 50 remained during the 20th century. In fact, when the Bali rose again, Angellis Ater started to work with the Inquisition again, searching for those infernalists and trying to eradicate them with their knowledge about demons. In fact, an Angellis Ater can achieve demonhood for many reasons, including eradicating cultists and other infernalists. So, one of my primary reasons for being so iffy about this is that how do you roleplay this? What is the grander goal of an Angellis Ater? What do they seek? What drives them to move forward? You have a couple of sentences there to describe what it is. So, they believe that vampires are the instrument of Satan and they worship sin and the darkness of soul. Okay, and elaborate, maybe. Angellis Ater can achieve demonhood for many reasons, including eradicating cultists and other infernalists. This is a bit less weird because Satanists infight all the time. This is just another small disagreement between vampires on what the correct Satanism is, and therefore they're just murdering each other over that. But how would you play that? What is their flavor of Satanism is what I'm trying to infer and to ask here, and honestly my answer to that is I don't know. because they were never elaborated upon. And just so you know, that's not how you spell Angellis Ater. Remove the L and add the extra L on the Angellis, but this is a meme. This is not like a correct spelling base, so let's leave the meme alone for now. One thing that I thought I was gonna do to learn more information about them is to read about Azanel. Who was Azanel? Well, for the most part, Azanel has caused strife inside Bali by deciding to be the Bali that goes and excavates an old Bali city. And he did manage to get underneath an old Bali city and do precisely just that. But the room that he entered had a vast amount of knowledge that was a bit cursed knowledge. It was like written over the walls and sigils and signs and all sorts of weird magics. It is the kind of knowledge that makes you go a bit insane. So everybody that entered the room with him frenzied. It's the point where vampires can't really control themselves, and out of that frenzy, what happened is that I think Azanel ate everybody else in the room, or at least that's the implication, because he was the last one standing. And he gained so much knowledge that he kind of ascended into demonhood right there and then. But vagueness galore. What knowledge? What was it about? What does he stand for? What is his bigger ambitions in life? Where is he heading? Is there like a grand plan? We don't have that. We have none of that because the lore is just not there. And it really grinds my gears because how are you supposed to use that in a game when the lore is not there? It's almost like a throwaway little quip that never gets revisited ever again. There is one thing that's interesting about Azanel. So, I'm gonna just read the starting paragraph on what Azanel is, because that is the interesting bit. Azanel is seemingly a powerful Bali Methuselah, leader of a new Bali branch, and believed to be the founder of the Angellis Ater. Iluit scholars of the Tal Mahara, we have covered them in previous necromancer vampire bloodlines videos, watch those, because specifically I think it was Nagaraja that are mostly involved with Tal Mahara, though maybe Cappadocians to a point. But those are in different videos, is what I'm trying to tell you right now. So we have covered what that is. Not important for here. They cite Azanel as the name of a second-generation vampire who had been partially diablerized by one or more antediluvians. But he had managed to retreat as a manner of disembodied demonic specter to the Clypoth realm. If true, the current being called Azanel would be a husk of a Bali Methuselah of an unknown name, possessed by a demonic specter of a second-generation vampire that has also ascended into full demonhood. So you're stacking ghost, vampire, demon in here, or rather like demonic ghost, vampire, demon, like into one character. And the stacking of things is quite fun, but the stacking doesn't make up for the lore that's plainly not there. Like, that is what you get on Angellis Ater, and that is by far not enough. Like, I don't get it. Now, for disciplines that they get Daimonian, which is the Infernalist Demon discipline. Now, something to remember about this is that the first really offensive skill of Daimonian starts at level 3, which is quite high up for anyone that's attempting to play a character. Then they get the Obtenebration, which is the ability to manipulate shadows that comes from the La Sombra side. One thing to remember is that classically, the first real offensive ability of Obtenebration happens at level 3, which is when you can summon your tentacles, and then they can either take Potence, which is hit hard, Presence, which is all look at me, nobody can take their eyes off you, or dominate, which is your ability to control and influence other people's minds by telling them what to do. It doesn't make for a very offensive vampire. It would be a very gimped vampire from the very beginning. If you somehow manage to play until you have enough points to at least get Daemonian and Optimum Liberation above level 3, you could end up being a very OP vampire, but the amount of play required, most people will not be getting there. Not to mention the question of how would you play this exactly. Believing that vampires are the instrument of Satan and that they worship sin and the darkness of the soul does not make for a good basis of role-playing. How do you role-play that when that is like the only sentence that you have? A lot of other bloodlines that too come off as unbelievably way too edgy will actually have path instead of humanity associated with them, so you will kind of know how to roleplay them from what's on that path. Like, what is an absolute no-no for your character and what is like a yes. But on top of that, they tend to have write-ups of what kind of people this bloodline likes to embrace, what is like the general background of people, what are like the general interests that they have. And for Angellis Ater, we have nothing. Like, nothing. So, let's go to the before mentioned Reddit thread that talks about Angellis Ater. So let's start by covering the meme. The Angellis Ater make no fucking sense and I hate them. Me, just trying to run a Sabbat game. That player trying to explain why I should let them play is Angellis Ater. Hi, my name is Ebony Darkness Dementia Raven Way, and I have long ebony black hair, that's how I got my name, with purple streaks and red tips that reaches my mid-back, and icy blue eyes like limpid tears. And a lot of people tell me I look like Amy Lee. If you don't know who she is, get the hell out of here. I'm not related to Gerard Way, but I wish I was because he's a major fucking hottie. I'm a vampire, but my teeth are straight and white. I have pale white skin. I'm also a witch, and I go to a magic school called Hogwarts in England, where I'm in the 7th year. I'm 17. I'm a goth, in case you couldn't tell, and I wear mostly black. I love Hot Topic, and I buy all my clothes from there. If you don't know what this is. And this is a very popular to make fun of, but also now just really well-known fanfic that was probably written by a middle schooler when it was starting. And it's called My Immortal. The impressive thing about it is that it is a very, very huge fanfic. If you print it into a book, it would actually be like a huge tome that's kind of all written like this. Hence why it got this notoriety / popularity online as like an example of a kind of bad fanfic, but also people were very into the dedication that the person writing this had to write as much as they did. So what this person is trying to say is that the kind of people that would try to play Angellis Ater are edgy and kind of middle school adjacent. Like, they don't read as fully grown-up adults because the kind of themes that they want to explore and the way that they see their characters is fairly immature. If we're gonna read comments on this, because some people have shared some opinions on this, we can kind of get an understanding in how different people used this bloodline or failed to use this bloodline in their games. One commenter said, I once let someone play one of these fucking things. They got beaten to death by a Toreador fencer the second session because their discipline lineup is way better, and athletes are better statted for violence than occultist weirdos, which is something that I pointed out at the beginning. You would be very gimped if you went with this bloodline at the very least at the start. Another person expressed that they think that there's a place for them, but normal troop play isn't it. they believe that they make good boogeyman characters. They played one as a PC antagonist in a very horror-leaning one-shot once, and he was a blast. Mind you, he was also quite a long way from the type you describe above, just the decrepit old blind man who ran a hotel in rural Louisiana. So the setup for the campaign was that, you go to a hotel, the hotel has off vibes, the owner of the hotel has off vibes, and he is played as like a very generic bad guy that just appears to be quite creepy. And that is how they use Angellis Ater. But if you Ater, I'm now reading the meme text, which isn't helping. Now, if you want to build a bad guy for your, world that lasts for more than one shot or that the players can ask questions about, I would say that it would be very hard to build one using Angellis Ater, because Angellis Ater, as a bloodline, would lean more into building one-dimensional people. If you're building a bad guy that reappears and reoccurs, the players might ask such questions as, what is his bigger plan? Why is he doing it? What is his background? Where does he come from? And creating satisfying answers when you selected a bloodline that is very one-dimensional is quite difficult. Therefore, you would hope that nobody asks those questions, as you made a generic bad guy A in order to antagonize the party and be stopped by the party, and that's that. Like, that is the end of it. It's so hard to use something like this, okay? Like, this needs so much more lore. This is like an open-ended idea that then went nowhere, and that really bugs me. Now, somebody asked the person that posted the meme, what is Angellis Ater? And they explained it like this. Angellis Ater are an edgy as fuck bloodline in Vampire the Masquerade that takes the shadow-controlling La Sombra clan and the satanic evil Bali bloodline and tries to Frankenstein them together. Their lore makes no fucking sense, and they should have never been in the game, since letting someone play them ends up making the game turn into one of those edgy emo fanfics from the 2000s. That's why they were using My Immortal to portray that. I'll just put this here. The so-called Black Angels believe that vampires are the instrument of Satan, and they worship sin and the darkness of the soul. Their La Sombra blood lets them reach into the blackness, pull it forth, and manipulate it. And the Black Angels become dependent upon and addicted to the use of the obtenebration discipline over time. If that doesn't sound like some Linkin Park Evanescence It's Not a Phase Mom edgelord bullshit, I don't know what is. Other examples are them somehow being a La Sombra bloodline despite being descended from Bali, and them somehow being infernalist hunters in some depictions despite being infernalists and satanists themselves. The lore is just really, really lacking for this bloodline, and I think that's why it's not mentioned, that's why it's not played, that's why the only really thing that I could find about them was somebody posting a meme. There isn't a lot of people posting about them because there isn't a lot of people using them because they're not quite usable as they are. The idea is so cool though, like merging Bali and La Sombra is cool, but even for the edgiest of all edgy bloodlines, you kinda need a bit more than this. And unfortunately, because Paradox currently doesn't want to revisit Bali, and especially in the version 5 of the game, I don't think that this is ever gonna be revisited or expanded upon, and that is just so awful. If you ever used Angellis Ater, or know how to use Angellis Ater, or have an idea as to how you would use Angellis Ater in your game, please tell me. I'm very interested in examples and where imagination takes you, because once again, this is like such an open-ended, broad idea, but there isn't enough structure, there isn't enough lore, there isn't enough things to base them into the world, there isn't a bigger goal, a bigger idea, something that they seek, or a specific way that they act on the regular, all of that is just not there. And that's such a problem if you want to actually play something or even implement it into your game as a bad guy. So thank you for listening to my rant. When we come back, we're going to be exploring easier to understand bloodlines, because this one is literally the only one that had a blurb this small from all of the bloodlines that I wanted to cover. All of the other ones have a bit more than this. I am fascinated by the idea of this, but not quite by the execution. Anyway, thank you so much for my Patreon supporters. You allow me to play video games, to have tabletop books, and of course I can use that funds and reinvest those funds into building a new computer, because mine has completely died, so those funds have been partially used to do that too. Huzzah! So thank you guys really, really much. Thank you all that have watched this up to the end, and I hope I'm gonna see you in my other videos. Toodaloo for now.